name is Stephanie Smith, and I'm privileged to serve as the chair of this commission. But I do that in concert with my colleagues, as they all have a really great range of experience, both lived and technical expertise. And so I serve as the managing partner and co-founder of Celtic Solutions. We're a change management firm. We help organizations navigate change through an equity lens, and we're based in Kansas City, Missouri. I'm also the first district at-large rep. So a little bit about this process before I pass it to my colleagues to introduce themselves. We recognize that at the end of this process, at the end of the day, that this is a collection of compromise. That surely there will be a lot of disappointment and perhaps hopefulness as a result of this process. And so what has been very important to us, and many have asked me, how will I know that this is successful? And for me, it is when we have a community that understands, one, the process, and that we've been transparent, that we've been good listeners, and that we also can talk as a community, how does this impact us? Understanding that there will be shifts for most all of us in Kansas City. So with that, I will turn to this side down here. Hello, Commissioner Zamora. If you can kick off or continue our introductions.
Yes, good morning or good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the invitation to this beautiful facility. Congratulations on that. My name is Pedro Zamora. I'm the Executive Director for the Hispanic Economic Development Corporation. I'm a lifetime 4th District resident, multi-generational 4th District resident. I'm honored to be selected at large to represent the 4th District and to help our city look at redistricting our communities. Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioner. I guess good afternoon now. Good afternoon, everyone. Mike Kellum, 1st District Representative. I work for a Midwest-based engineering firm. Lived in the Northland of Kansas City, Missouri for about 8 years now. Grew up in the Northland, but not in Kansas City, so been in and around Kansas City my entire life. Excited to have conversation today to continue dialogue and to better understand and continue to advocate for representation within each district and how we can set us on the right path for the next 10 years until the next census when we go through this process again. So I appreciate everyone being here today, taking time out of this beautiful fall day, and look forward to hearing from each one of you. Thank you.
My name is Vicki No Ties. I'm also representing the 4th District on the commission, and glad to be here to listen to people's ideas and issues. I'm also a native of Kansas City. I've lived here all my life except for some years at school. I'm an architect and urban planner, and I know some of you from my time at the city when I was Director of City Planning and Development. And now I have a consulting firm in the private sector, Collins No Tyson Associates, where we do community and city planning for lots of communities. But it's been an honor to serve on this. It's important. It's a 10-year decision, and it isn't easy to do. So we're anxious to hear your comments after we've explained how we got this far. Thank you.
My name is Clinton Adams. I'm a lifelong resident of the 3rd District, and I represent the 3rd District on this commission. And I'm currently an attorney in the city, still practicing law with office downtown Kansas City.
Good afternoon, Martin T. Rucker II, representing the 2nd District. I lived in the Northland for about 6 or 7 years now. I'm a small business owner here in Kansas City and a devoted public servant.
Hi, my name is Kokithia Hill. I am representing the 5th District. I founded a firm called Black, which advocates for improved educational outcomes for Black children in public schools. I proudly serve as a former city councilwoman for the 5th District, as well as serve as the vice chair of the City Planning Commission. So I'm excited to see so many people out today and some people from the 5th District, so welcome.
Hello, my name is Reed Day. I'm the 6th District at-large representative on the commission here. I grew up in the Southland, Kansas City, kind of Redbridge, Avila College area. Now live in the Brookside area. lifelong resident, except for a couple years of school and being away, decided to come back home to Kansas City. And I'm an attorney in town as well, so.
My name is Chris Llewellyn. I also too represent the 6th District. Once again, I grew up around 120th and Warnell around Avila College. I currently reside in the Brookside neighborhood. I'm a small business owner through restaurant bars in the 6th District, Lou's Grill and Bar in the Well in Waldo, as well as Charlie Hooper's Bar and Grill in Brookside. I'm also a commercial real estate investor and own several pieces of commercial real estate in and around Kansas City, Missouri. In addition to this board, I sit on 2 other boards, the Alcohol Board Advisory Group with Kansas City, Missouri, and the Waldo CID. Thank you.
Thank you, commissioners. So one of the things, hopefully, when you all came in addition to signing in, you were able to get your own handy dandy versions of these 3 maps. But also these guiding principles for the city's redistricting process. And as part of this, we'll have Commissioner Rucker walk through some of our guiding points.
Yeah, so this is a process that we have to go through every 10 years after we receive the census data. It's usually a 9-month process due to delays resulting from COVID-19. The results came in late, and so a 9-month process has been condensed into a 9-week process. And we are tasked with redrawing the lines for the city councilmanic districts, trying to keep each district relatively the same. Each district has to be contiguous, meaning all parts of the district have to touch. It can't be split up by district. The population must remain within a 10% variance in every single district. It also has to keep pace or adhere to the Voting Rights Act and not drawing minority representation intentionally out of the district. And keeping with the 1 person, 1 vote, and it goes into the 10% variance, but just making sure that the populations are close enough so that every person's voice is heard at the ballot box.
Thank you. Anything else to add, commissioners? Community, any questions about the redistricting process? Any clarification questions? We want to make sure we're all on the same page.
And I guess I can add that this process on our end will be finished by December 1st. It must be voted on and accepted by the city council by the 31st. And so we will send our map to the city council on the 2nd after we voted for it on the 1st for their approval.
Thank you for that. Any questions, neighbors? All right, thank you. So up next, what we'll have is our team member, Cal, be able to walk through the 3 maps.
I'm going to cover a few things that we've likely already covered, but I think some of the graphics will also help as well. For those of you that haven't been involved in the process, this is currently what our council districts looks like. The gray shape on the right side is the composition of Kansas City, Missouri, broken up into those 6 districts. Since the census was taken in 2020, we have new numbers, and basically we have to take the new total population of Kansas City and divide that up to 6. Current population for Kansas City as of the census is 580,090 people. Once again, you divide that by 6, so you get around 84,000, 85,000 people. There is some ability when you're drawing these maps to have some deviation on that number, and as it's been mentioned already, you can have up to a 10%. We try to keep that as close to 0 as you can between the districts, and what that basically means is your highest populated and your lowest populated districts, it's the deviation between those. In addition to just chasing population, and we do this once again to try to set the expectation of why we're not just keeping populations, we're looking at established patterns, we're looking at jurisdictional boundaries. Once again, best practice is also to try to do minimal change. The social aspects also come into play, so what makes a neighborhood, what makes an area. Keep the shape simple, look at elected officials, and also look at neighborhood boundaries. Real quick, if you've been to the meetings, you've probably heard me talk about this, but just for those of you that might not, or those that are following from home, when you're looking at the maps, there's a couple things to understand. The map itself basically has 6 different colors on it. Those represent each district. It has a scenario number up in the left corner. also down in the left corner in the title. The panel on the left side with 4 spreadsheets gives you the demographic breakdowns, and those are going to be things like total population, percentages of the racial breakdowns, and also ethnic categories, and also age in there as well. To basically keep track of each map up in the right-hand corner based on those things, we also just put a quick cheat box up there that kind of shows you where they all relate, and that's what we're going to talk through. So when you guys get up in a moment and walk around and look at the maps and place your dot on the map, revisit that corner piece. One of the first maps, and I'm going to go through all 3 of these to begin with, and then I'll yield the microphone. First map that we're looking at is 7.1. 7.1 is obviously a revision of 7.1, so that was based on feedback from the commission, feedback from website information, and feedback from meeting attendance. This one really focuses on making sure that areas where we think growth will occur have enough room so they maintain within that 10% compliance for quite a little while. It also shows a vertical first and second district north of the river. The maps, as you're looking at them as well, the hard blue lines through these are the existing council districts. So one of the things that we also look for is minimal change. This one does a pretty good job of that one. Now on to the demographic components. These are the things that this commission has really took a heavy look at to make sure that these are things that are priorities. And these are making sure that the Hispanic population and the Black or African American population are strong and represented. And all 3 of these maps do a good job of that. So in the 3rd district, 52% of that population is Black or African American. In the 5th district, 58% of that. Those are numbers that we really don't want to go much below 52 if we can. It's possible to do that, but we're trying to maintain those, and that has really dictated a lot of the drawing of these maps. The other consideration that we're trying to match is the Hispanic population. It's been several cycles of elections since we've had a Hispanic representative on council. So 20% in the 3rd district is the highest massing of that one. The next map, the next 2 maps are actually very similar, just with a different pattern along the 1st and 2nd districts, which are the top 2 ones. So most of what I say about 8.4 will resonate for 8.6 as well. So 8.4 does present a little bit of change in the southern portion, but actually quite a bit in the north. 1st district and 2nd district, which are the sand color and the purple color, on this map actually travel horizontally or east-west. This map does a good job, other than those 2 things, of being relatively little change. It's pretty compact for the most part. 6 does become a very linear long district as well. Related to the Black or African American population in the 3rd district, it's around 52%, so very, very similar to the previous map, and 58%. Oops, sorry, I'm looking at the old sheet. So for those following on those maps, you heard me misspeak. 51% in 3rd and 57% in the 5th. And then the Hispanic population in the 3rd district is 20% as well. So we'll go to the next map as well. And once again, this one is basically the same composition, and it's 8.6 of the map before. The slight deviation here is the population of the 1st district and 2nd district were deviated, switched just a little bit, but you can also see the pattern. So this one represents closer to what is the current composition of our district, so it's a little closer on the change, but there's some really good reasons why the commission decided to look at this configuration and the previous configuration of horizontal. With that, I will yield the floor.
Thank you for that. So now we'll transition we wanted Cal to be able to, of course, provide the kind of technical overview, but we would like to continue to talk about this from a very relevant perspective. After all, each of us, thank you, each of us serve as volunteers and representative of not only our districts, but of the city. So of course we'll have a councilmatic view, but also a thought about what might be best for the city as a result of these shifts. And so we'll start with District 1. So Commissioner Kellum?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Just to provide a very brief and concise composition of thought around the current maps, the three that you have before you, I would say that none of them are anywhere, in my opinion, where they need to be finalized, and understand that based on prior public comment, we still have some work to do. Specifically, and I'll start in the southern districts, the 5th and 6th, working to better align the boundary with neighborhood needs around that Granby Road scenario is one thing that I think needs to be continue to be looked at. And I think that, quite frankly, 7.1 gives us the best opportunity to have a foundation to build from, which would allow us to work specifically from that to address that need. Not only that need, but also understanding the 4th District's need to create an opportunity to not split key neighborhoods in the southern 4th District boundary, keeping it in that 43rd Street area, realizing the dynamic between Westport, the Plaza, and those neighborhoods that are in that area as well. I think there's some opportunity there, and this gives us an opportunity to do that. I think also that there's an opportunity with the 4th District to work within 3rd to increase the Latinx population, to give that voting population an opportunity to have representation. So I think there's an opportunity there that can easily be done through that as well. Lastly, I will say that the horizontal configuration in the Northland, obviously being a 1st District representative, have firsthand knowledge, is best suited. If you were to do the horizontal, quite frankly, it would put all the growth in one district, which would then require, or actually would dilute the representation almost immediately. Unfortunately, which I understand this body does not want to do based on the charge that we have, keeping minimal change to boundaries and also one person, one vote. I think gives us the best opportunity there. Also keeps us from having issues with county boundaries, given that the Northland has 2 counties to work within versus majority of the Southland being within Jackson County. Outside of that, I think there's a tremendous opportunity from that basis of map at 7.1. I think we as a commission all understand that we're continually working to get the best solution out there, providing compromise, and look forward to having continued discussion. But more importantly, I look forward to hearing from each one of you based on the narratives and understandings that we have.
Thank you. Commissioner Rucker?
I would say, first of all, thanks again for everyone coming out, and I would echo everything that my 1st District Commissioner has said. Being from the Northland, just some of the things that we heard coming to these public comment sessions about the Southland, since we don't live down here, that's pretty much what we had to go off of. And so I think that the 7.1 is the best map to start from to make those tweaks. We've played with a lot of different tweaks, neighborhood by neighborhood, line by line, and it's just kind of, it's led to these maps. So I'm not sure how much more change we can get, because as Kyle will tell you, every little change throws the map off in another place. And so it'll be tough, but there is more work to be done. And I think 7.1 or 8.6 would be the best starting place. My issue with 8.6 would be the higher Hispanic population in the 3rd District. I think that it would better suit Latinx representation if we could get the high representation in the 4th District, even though if it's only a few percentage points. I think that's where we were going to be heavy. As you can see in 7.1, it's basically 20% in both. In 8.6, it's got 22%. If there was a way to get that 22% in the 4th, that would be a better place to start. But again, they're both similar, so I think we could work in there and possibly make that a little bit better. Commissioner Kellum spoke about the horizontal split in the Northland, and being representative from up there, I would just echo exactly what he said, and I would add that while it may seem to some people, I guess, makes sense that there's higher income earners in that northern portion, and there's not as high of income earners in the middle portion, it seems to create segregation. And I'm not a segregationist, and I don't think that that's something that we should start again. I feel like the city's come a long ways in trying to erase those things. And so I think that it just doesn't seem like the right thing to do. And the Northland works so cohesively and so well together now that to take that and split that horizontally now, it just doesn't seem to make sense. It seems like we'd be going backwards.
Thank you.
Look forward to continuing this task. And working to draw these lines with the fellow commissioners.
Thank you. You hit us with some vocabulary. So we have to process it. Okay. Commissioner Adams,
Okay.
3rd District.
One thing I want to start off by is commending my fellow commissioners. Everyone here has made a commitment to protecting the voting rights of minorities in the city and recognizing that based upon the history and based upon the data, that we have an obligation to draw maps that preserve healthy and safe majorities of African Americans in the 3rd and 5th District. Having said that, then in my view, none of these maps assure that at this point in time. I disagree with the staff of representation that 52% is sufficient. And based on my experience and studying this and doing it here in the Kansas City area since 1980, I've been involved in redistricting in some jurisdictions every 10 years. And that experience in the city, the school district, the county legislature, and community college boards, we've always tried to get them as close to 60 as possible. And we certainly need at least 55% African-American majority in both districts. None of these maps do that. But I think we have a commitment, at least heretofore we've had a commitment to try to work together to try to achieve that. In my view, I do prefer at this point map 8.4 with some tweaks. I'm not going to get into it now in much detail now. We have time to basically debate this as we go along. But I think there's a lot to be said about having people of similar income, similar housing values in one district, and also certain political views. And we'll discuss that in more details as we proceed. If you're committed, as this commission is, to having healthy majorities in 3 and in 5, it's going to impact the boundaries of every other district. When we try to reach an accommodation, and everybody here, we heard this community at the other hearings, and we looked at and we tried to see how we can put all of Hickman Mills into the 5th District and maintain healthy majorities of African Americans in the 5th District and in the 3rd District. Heretofore, we have not been able to do that. When you draw that boundary line, move it over, even toward Grandview Road, as Mike mentioned earlier, it dilutes the black vote in the 5th District. Now, if people are comfortable with that, you certainly have a right to take that position, but it's not a position that I would ever adhere to and support. And I don't believe that my community would adhere to it and support it. If somebody's got some ideas of how we can do that, and also address the needs, address the population situation in the 6th District, we're all ears for it. I'm looking forward to hearing it. But one thing we have to realize is that the 6th District had to gain more population than any of the other districts in the city during this process. So if you take out people from the 6th District, in addition to that, take more people out of the 6th District and put them into the 5th District, you're going to dilute it, make it even bigger charge, which means the 6th District has to go even further north into the 4th. It's going to impact all the other boundaries. So that's something I hope you all will be conscious of when you're reviewing the maps. If you have some suggestions as to how we can get the 5th District, up over 55% to 58, and doing that, let us know. And how can you get the 3rd District, get the 3rd District up? The 3rd District right now is low, insufficiently low, and unacceptably low in my view, on all these maps. We need to get that up to 55 or 58%. And I don't know how we can do that, and also address that boundary out there between the 5th and the 6th.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Zamora, 4th District at large.
Yes. Thank you, Madam Chair. As my colleague, fellow commissioners have mentioned, this has not been an easy task, and we've listened to so many inputs, be it the social media as well as in person. As a longtime representative of the 4th District and a resident of the 4th District, it is, as Commissioner Adams said, neither of these maps are perfect, but it's a good preliminary base map to help us begin narrowing down what we must accomplish, protecting the majority African Black vote in the 3rd, 5th District. But it also gives us an opportunity to reconsider what the reshaping of our city in the 4th District, where there is a predominantly immigrant population, not only Latino, but other immigrant refugees that are arriving into the 4th District. We have to adjust these boundaries with your help and consideration, and the goal of keeping the continuity of our city together. Socioeconomics are a big component of what we see as a decision-making factor for why we draw maps, why we put percentages into each demographic, is to create that one person, one voice. I too have concerns with the black-brown numbers in the 3rd and 4th District. We have come to a consensus that the growth in the 6th District is stalled, and moving population into the 6th District, it impacts 5 and 4 dramatically. And we must keep that in consideration as we move forward. The maps that I really liked did not make this list, though, but I will say 8-4 gives us a good perspective, as well as 7-1 are the two I lean towards. I'm not a fan of trying to preserve a 10% for growth. Our city must live with what we have today. 4th District, 1st District, 2nd District, our growth are accelerating faster than we can imagine. It's a good thing, but it's a problem for us. So I want 7.1, 5.2 are where I'm sitting at on my maps.
Thank you. Commissioner Notais.
Thank you. I want to start, I guess, with just a couple of comments about the fact that the good news is the city grew about 10%. That's something everybody's wanted to see for a long time, and a concerted effort for a long time. The surprise, because everybody knows that Northland is the place where we're growing our suburban neighborhoods. But the surprise was that the 4th District grew by almost 15%, I think. And a lot of that is from all the activity downtown, River Market, West Side, et cetera, because of changes in the development pattern. Our economic engine really runs in Kansas City from downtown out to the plaza in at least a straight line. Crown Center, Westport in the middle. There's 200,000 jobs in there. And so part of the 4th District, no matter where you cut it off, has to balance the needs of the business community downtown and the neighborhoods that are in their district. And the biggest change in most of these is that the 4th District has become the most eclectic one. We didn't explain it very well, but in the growth for each district, it means that when we went to 85,000 people, we had 79,000 in each district before. The ones that grew have to shed some people out of their district to make it equal when you try to get it to 85,000. So districts 1 and 2 had to get rid of 7,000 in District 1 and 4,000 in District 2. And District 4 has to get rid of 5,800 people. So part of what drove this are these interconnected issues, but somebody mentioned before about last time around, we've always had to go in this clockwise circle to push any kind of growth up, and we go around. So somebody has to cross the river. With 1 and 2 that big now, then that leaves the 4th District also has parts of the Northland. The southern boundary of 4 before was 59th Street. Everybody went crazy. Nobody liked that last time. 6 didn't like it, 4 didn't like it, but that's what they needed to do. We can't keep it that far south anymore because there's too many people in 4 to do that, and we're losing, by proposing this at 43rd Street instead, that's 20,000 people who are leaving the 4th and being welcomed into the 6th, along with UMKC, the Nelson Atkins, a lot of our cultural institutions, et cetera. So it's changing the complexion of both 4 and 6. And if any of you, some of you might remember the old District 4, which ran pretty much through the southwest corridor downtown, or westward down to the county line. 6 is turning into what the old 4 used to be. And, you know, that's a big shift in terms of balancing like needs within a district. The 4th District's going to have a hard time with that as well. It's going to be, somebody called it the United Nations of the Council District, but that's okay. I think if 4 has its emphasis on the most urban part of the city, the most dense part of the city, the most diverse part of the city in terms of housing available, et cetera, then I think that might clarify some issues for the people who live there to understand that they're the ones that are carrying the burden on that, and the rest of the districts are very much relying on residential areas. And that means just that the issues are slightly different. And in the 4th District, those neighborhoods have to kind of compete with downtown and the jobs corridor, et cetera, for their needs. So I think we've all come to the conclusion that 85,000 people per district is a lot. It's a lot if you've campaigned anywhere trying to go door to door with all of that. That's a lot of people. And my personal opinion is I'm not sure we can sustain that for another 10 years. The city's going to have to look at some other options on how to do this fairly and still meet all the criteria that we've all committed to meet. The Voting Rights Act, the 10% rule, contiguous districts, et cetera. But there are big changes in here. And they're going to be a surprise to some people, but what that says to me is that the districts are going to have to work together, and the council people elected from those districts are going to have to work together and trade some expertise back and forth, because it changes the complexion quite a bit. I think balance is the key issue when whichever map we pick, in terms of each district trying to balance out its needs in the best way it can do city business in an even and fair way when we get these decided. We can't satisfy everyone, but we have been trying really hard to do that, and there will be some tweaks where we might still be able to do that. But all of us have made big compromises and to make this work with so many people per district and stay contiguous. So I just want to put that out there to keep in mind for you. I think personally 8.4 does that the best. Sort of changes the way the city council dynamics work, and I think that's a good thing for now. Bye now.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate that, Walt. Dr. Hill, 5th District.
All right. Well, I'll be just very pragmatic, I guess, and to the point. In all of the maps, the 5th District remains the same. So if you don't like it, then, and I am not happy about the current boundaries. I think we can do some tweaking, but they're all the same. So if we are really looking at like Kansas City broadly as a city, then it comes down for me to map 7.1 and 8.4. When I think about the boundaries of the 5th District, it's really minimal change to our existing configuration. If you look at where there has been some significant movement, it's really in 2 places. The northern part of the 5th District, the boundary between the 3rd and the 5th was 51st Street, And if you see, it's very jagged, right? And if you're thinking about either moving from the 5th to the 3rd or the 3rd into the 5th, and if you are organizing and knocking on doors, it can be very hard to decipher like what is your district and what is the other person's district. So we like to have strong, clear boundaries, and this doesn't provide that. It goes from 51st to 55th to 53rd to 58th to 51st. So I think that if we can, there's some spaces to clean that up. The second place where you will see significant changes in the southern boundary, right? You see that the 5th district now is extending down into what has historically been 2 boots of the 6th district, and now, taking 1 boot. So going from, I think what that might be, the highway that served as a natural barrier, a little south of 103rd, all the way clear down. And so, as all the commissioners have said, as you looked at the map before, the 5th district needed to grow. I think about 45 or 5,000, somewhere in there. So we needed to find a way in order to have parity with the other districts to gain population. Now, the 3rd district also needed to increase its population. And so when both of those districts have historically been the majority black voting areas, that means that the only way that the 3rd can maintain being a predominantly black voting district is to increase in a way that takes some black folks in the 5th. So that's the reason why that boundary is steeping from 51st to 53rd to try to maintain. And even as you see it with little minimal change, it still has the 3rd district, I think, at 51%, right? What I would submit to you is, I think that there's ways to work with 6th district to say, can we come over to Grandview Road? Let's see what that looks like. We tried Blue River, we tried to put the entire Hickman Mills school district in it, and it just diluted the black vote. And that is super important to all of us, right? Just to maintain representation. And then again, there was some configuration where, we tried to go clear over, and then that required 6th district to go clear north to almost, I think, 39th Street on some. And so it has been a delicate balance between 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th, right? So when I come back and look at the 2 maps and I say, well, there's some, disruption to neighborhoods. There clearly is Town Fork Creek and Blue Hills and 4963 and Citydale that these boundaries kind of jigsaw and break up neighborhoods. And certainly in the 5th district, we have a lot of neighborhood block groups, right? And so we want to be mindful of that. I think that we can clean this up a bit. The major sticking point for me is when I look at the shifts and what the 5th district may lose and the disruption it may take, then I'm looking at, do I see every other district thinking about what they're willing to adjust and give up? And so that puts me back in my major map being 8.4. And the reason why I lean more into the horizontal, even though I don't represent the 1st and 2nd district, is I look back and when I see those red dots that represent elected officials, and if you look at that horizontal map and you see that all 4, the 2 at-large and the 2 in district from the 1st and the 2nd are in the same northern region, north of, Berry Road, then that says to me that income inequality is that maintaining that status quo is going to be a burden of the poor, right? And I agree with my fellow commissioner. I don't want to promote segregation, right? But I also understand what maintaining income inequality does for people. It limits their power, their voice, and their representation. So I do think it's time that there is some diverse representation in the Northland and the way that we achieve that. Because if we keep the vertical, you're looking at folks that are running and can live in a community that is highly affluent. And there's nothing wrong with having higher income and being in a position, but when we think about increasing the boundaries and 84,000 people, that requires money, right? So I have less money, and now I'm running against a person that lives in a very affluent district. And when we think about that in the political process, that is often meant that those from lower income communities are their voices is marginalized and stymied, and you don't see it in representation. So I, for one, are thinking that 8.4 is my preferred map, with trying to see what we can do with the 6th district to extend over to Grandview Road, and hoping that that doesn't push the 6th district so far north that it ends up causing more disruption to the 4th. And, you know, the 3rd district, I know that's the only way that you can gain Black population. Hopefully throughout our city, if we really talk about creating a one Kansas City where everyone wants to live, work, play, and be heard, we've got to think about the configuration of the electoral process in our city, and 6 council districts is just not it anymore. We're growing and we're diverse, and that's great. And if we want to celebrate that, then we have to be willing to break away from this current structure that we have right now. So those are my thoughts. I'm happy to listen to anyone. 5th district is happy to make some adjustments and shifts, but we're hoping that everyone else will, as we have come to this table, willing to do. So thank you.
Well stated, thank you. Commissioner Day?
Thank you. I want to listen to you all, so I don't want to rehash everything that's been said. My focus has been in listening to the feedback that we got first time around. It's been where can we, there's 2 points on the 6th district that are obvious. It's the Plaza, Westport area, and the Hickman Mills community down here. Hickman Mills, Hillcrest Road, Grandview, Blue River, kind of East Redbridge, where does that go? So that's been a frustration of mine, trying to line up population numbers and still get us in this 85,000 ballpark. With moving it over to Blue River Road and trying to not take over the Plaza or Westport, the population was extremely light. It wasn't anything near, I mean, it was under 70,000. So that we're trying to rework that. And I would, kind of echo what Clinton was saying. I want to hear what your possible solutions or thoughts are on that. I may hear in this room that, we want as much of the Hickman Mills community together, and we don't care if the 6th district takes Westport and the Plaza. But then I think my question back would be, how can we rework the 4th then? And it plays on everything. It makes it really hard to move around. And just to speak on the Plaza for just a minute, and I don't know, Kyle, if you have it in your slide deck, but he's got a slide it's one of the most populated portions of the city, and if you start at, it's probably 55th and go to just beyond the other side of Westport, I think. How many people was it, Kyle, do you remember?
Sorry, off the top of my head, it's about 42.
Yeah, okay.
From.
Or maybe Clinton said that earlier too. So it's 42,000 people, and if you start working with precincts and moving, trying to take one, then that's 9,000, and then another, it's 10,000, and that population is so much more dense than the area, the kind of East Redbridge area, this area west of 71 that we're trying to work into the 5th, most likely, given some of the public comments about Hickman Mills and what you all wanted. So that's, I kind of end my my narrative with a question back of, where, if you're unhappy with that line, what can we do? Understanding that it's going to kind of trigger a circle and an impact on every other district.
Thank you. Commissioner Warren?
Thank you. I'm going to be a little bit briefer because I don't want to reiterate a lot of the things the other fellow commissioners said that I agree with. But from the 6th district perspective, when I look at all 3 maps, they're very, very similar. So which one is favorable to my personal opinion is they're so similar that I don't have a favorite when it comes down to how the 6th district is laid out per se. What I do, and what I'd like to hear the next 2 public meetings that we're having is, do we want an east-west boundary in the 1st and 2nd district, or do we want a north-south? I think that will really help me decide on which of the 3 maps that I prefer. But I just want to let everyone know from the 6th district perspective, when I got into this, I thought, this is crazy. There's no way that the Plaza should be in the 6th district. I did understand from the Hickman Mills community that they wanted to be all intact, either the 6th or the 5th, and I did understand that. And I just thought there was just going to be a way that we could tweak that. And after you just do the math, I kind of feel like the 6th, the 4th district is kind of like a balloon. Once you squeeze one side, the air has got to go somewhere. And anytime that we are tweaking with the Hickman Mills School District boundaries, it is just playing with the Plaza Westport. And it was almost like I had to compromise, which that was one of the things I said at our last meeting which we're all going to have. Everyone in this room is going to have to compromise in some way. My compromise was, okay, we can't include the plaza in the 6th district. It's not ideal. But the population we need, my other opinion was also too, I kind of think the plaza is similar to like Arrowhead Stadium or something, whereas it's Kansas City's gem, and that the whole city benefits from that, and that I don't think that the representation difference on the plaza would be any different if it was in the 4th or the 6th, based on the fact that I think all 6 districts want the plaza to succeed. And that's all the rest of my comments. Thank you.
Thank you to each of you. Thank you all for being so thoughtful. This is what I'm talking about being able to work with a good group that can think and critically think. The only thing that I'll add to this, because I am first in the 1st district as a Northlander, and you've heard the good news, Vicki, as you called it, of the growth that has been happening. I will say that what has been important to me is that we hear what community members, the vast number of community members that we've been able to hear from, what the priorities have been. What the challenge becomes is when those honoring the priorities, as they're saying from community members, how they begin to conflict. And I like your analogy of Commissioner Llewellyn, squeezing it on this end really expands it in this end. And so that has been what the main piece is. But this common theme of representation has been really consistent. And thank you, Commissioner Hill, because your articulation about economic representation has been something that has just been really solidified for me throughout this and listening. We even heard after the first round of community meetings that it would be important for you all to hear what the commissioners are processing and what we are thinking in light of what we have heard from you. And so for me, the most favorable map is 8.4 for those reasons. As a Northlander, I think that it is important that we have representation of all. And that while some may coin it as segregation, I call it representation. That without people being able to have their interests and points of views centered by those who represent them, that they will continue to be invisible. That is also why we have to center, and we have consensus on this commission, to center the importance of maintaining a voting bloc where people of color and others who have been historically overlooked and marginalized can maintain their political voting power. So that becomes a predominant theme. And I have heard it echoed, and I agree with Commissioner Adams. I'm really grateful that I'm sitting with Kansas Cityans who believe that representation matters and they want to see it upheld within our political process. With that, things that we have also been thinking about, and surely myself, I'll speak for myself, is the importance for us to continue to implore the council to go back and review the charter and examine an increase perhaps in the number of councilmanic districts. As a city, and this is the good news, we are growing, and 6 no longer serves us. And so what can that look like? Whether that is an additional district that provides a better opportunity for representation ethnically and even socioeconomically. But these are the things that we have to think about. And while those are outside of our commission, our mandate is to think about how the lines can be redrawn so that we can make sure that there is one person, one vote, that there is a protection of the voting rights, a protected class block, that we are doing things in a way that continues to uplift and move Kansas City towards its best self. So hopefully this time has been well received, that you all can hear what your fellow community members are grappling with, because it is a grapple. Hopefully you can hear that. So as we open up the floor to you all, it is my hope that you all will be able, of course, to answer or speak to some of the requests that your commissioners have asked of, hey, if there's another way we should be thinking about this. But we took this time to do this first so you all can understand that we hear the need of wanting to keep neighborhoods together. That is extremely important to us as well. But as you also have heard, what the predominant priorities are with this representation, that we open up the floor now to hear your considerations and your thoughts. And once again, our charge is to take some iteration of these 3 maps, and I'll go over what our goals are. I've sent out our week-by-week goals to our council. We are in our listening of November the 6th and 8th with our community meetings, and our goal is to share and be transparent about where we're at in our process and the maps that we are leaning towards, as you heard us each talk about our favorable map, and also to be able to provide some insight so you all will be in on it and understand, and then also to listen to your feedback and response. Then November 10th will be our debriefing and synthesizing of the feedback. Our goal is to continue to apply the feedback as able. As these 3 maps will allow us to apply the feedback that we hear from you and still maintain our legal mandates and our beliefs within the commission. That is what our goal is. November the 5th, we will deliberate on final maps and move toward map selection for the council. November 22nd, final deliberation, where we will, if we haven't already done so, vote on the map selection. There'll be 1 map that we'll present to the council. And then December 1st, review and confirm our presentation. It'll be this commission's responsibility to give a presentation during a business session to the council, which is scheduled to be December the 2nd. And that is where we will communicate the process and what we have heard. Even though much of what we heard, some will be able to be represented on the maps and others won't, it will be our duty to still articulate what we heard. I think that that's important. And then also key considerations, which will include the council revisiting the charter and considering to make changes so that we can have a better 1KC. So with that, I'd like to bring Teresa Edens to the podium.
Good afternoon. Okay. Is this? Good afternoon. This is not part of what I was going to say, but I do have to say it. A lot of us, and I don't know what the reason is, but there are a lot of us in this part of town that honestly do not understand the sacred cowness of the plaza and Westport. What is wrong with them being in a different district? If that serves whatever your purpose is, then what is the problem? Anyway, when you were talking yesterday especially, I noticed about your standards. It was mentioned that districts should have the same interests and concerns. Socioeconomic status was another issue that appeared to be important, yet these issues are completely ignored when it comes to Hickman Mills. If you had taken your challenge and driven Red Bridge Road, you would have seen that Hickman Mills and the Red Bridge area have nothing in common. They have none of the same interests and concerns. We don't have the same housing stock, the same infrastructure, the same economic development, the same socioeconomic status. Well over 20 years ago, the state officially recognized the Hickman Mills School District as an urban school district, which would in turn be the same for the community. I don't believe that you could say the same thing for the Red Bridge area. Another issue was centered on those who say, I don't have a representative. Also, it was pointed out as a negative that someone, when this was in the discussion of the plaza, that someone living in the plaza area could have a representative living as far south as 135th Street. Take another look at Hickman Mills. Not only where our council people live, but where our commission representatives live, and I mean that is no offense. Also, we have one council person who rarely crosses the river for our community meeting. Another council person who flatly refuses to meet with us and tells us to talk to staff. We have no choice because there is no one east of Blue River who could afford to run against a candidate from the west side. The Northland seem to be concerned about using horizontal lines because of the way the areas get divided. The reasoning being the challenges that are caused when trying to work on joint applications such as PIAC and trying to work with more than 2 council persons. Welcome to our world for the past 10 years. You were asked to keep our school district whole. And this is a bit of an explanation because I keep hearing commissioners refer to us as a school district. Yes, we are a school district, but you, the group of you, should be thinking of us as a community. You were asked to keep our school district whole. That's because our unique situation causes those in this community to refer to the community and the school district interchangeably. When I was on the school board, I often told people, as the community goes, so goes the school district. And as the school district goes, so goes the community. We're one and the same, and you can't get more of a sense of place than that. We're a historic community with original buildings still standing. The first blow to us came when the post office changed our name to Hickman Mills rather than Hickman's Mill. And you can also still see the original mill wheel, if you would so choose.
Ms. Eden, 1 more minute.
Okay.
30 more seconds, I mean, sorry.
We began as a community with 4 one-room schoolhouses, which grew into the first consolidated school district in the state. Our community and our school district are one, a fact the city refuses to acknowledge. They also say we need a united theme. Well, we have a united theme, and it's right here. It's our mill. The second blow came in 2002 when the Hickman Mills area plan was first adopted. We were split at 71 Highway, which is referred to today as a barrier, but the city promised when the plan came up for review we would be united. However, the city reneged on that promise and kept us divided. Believe me when I say that is causing a rift from almost in our community. It was even brought up at our last Southern Communities Coalition meeting after a report on the redistricting. So this is your chance. You can stand by and see Hickman Mills divided by an artificial boundary and the resulting rifts that will occur, or you can do the right thing, unite us again, and change the future. Thank you.
Thank you. So friends, we have several comments that are on the dock. Melissa will be sitting behind the podium. When that rings, thank you so much, Ms. Eden. When you hear that bell ring, that is the conclusion of your time. We're gonna ask to have a culture of accountability in here and that we are monitoring ourselves so we can make sure that we hear everyone and honor the time that we have set up. I also like to acknowledge that I think Councilwoman Raina Park Shaw is in the building. Thank you so much. Hey, we've got another community member in here as well. Well, I saw a squad, but I didn't see you. So we also have Mayor Lucas. Thank you both for joining us in this. So next up.
Madam Chair, can I comment on that? What was that format? Were we going to be able to respond or comment?
If we
wait till the end?
Yeah, if we can wait till the end because each commissioner will be able to have your closing comments. So please track them. Thank you so much, Commissioner Adams. Did you have a question as well? Oh, Representative Sharp. Hello, Mark. How you doing? What are you doing? Thank you. Any other elected officials? All right. Thank you, and excuse me, Representative Sharp. Thank you for your commitment to community. All right. So we will have, let's say 2 minutes. 2 minutes for each person to speak. Next up, Dr. John Carmichael.
Good afternoon. I'm John Carmichael. I am a professor emeritus from the University of South Florida. I live in Royal Oaks of Edom, and I've been there for 3 years. I am the president of Royal Oaks of Edom, I am the Vice President of the Community Assistance Council and also the Secretary of Hickman Mills Education Foundation. I am speaking on behalf of my neighborhood, which is 154 houses and somewhere around 300 adults. We would like to be united with our historical connection to the Hickman Mills community. Hickman Mills School District was the first consolidated school district established in Kansas, in Missouri, in Kansas City and Missouri. And the identity of the community and the school district are one and the same. I don't believe you can split the community without having a negative impact on the school district. As an example, most of the center school district has been intact in District 6. That school has been much more successful than that school district than the Hickman Mills School District. Same thing for Grandview. Their school district was not split up, and that school district is much more successful than the Hickman Mills School District. And I think that that needs to be taken into consideration. I would like to urge you to move the boundary to the Blue River Road, which would help us with economic impact and the ability to maybe fund a candidate for council that would represent our area. I also would say that if we can't get that, Grandview Road, which is the boundary of my neighborhood, would be more acceptable than any of the maps shown.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
Next up, Ms. Linda Brown.
Thank you. Linda Brown from 5th District, live in the neighborhood of Blue Hills, a lifetime resident of Kansas City. I graduated from Southeast in the 5th District, went to college at UMKC in the district. So I have a lot of investment in the 5th District. But one of the things that I'm listening to, I heard segregation, I heard balance, voting, the whole thing. I have to piggyback on what you said earlier. I don't know, I know the plaza is great and the Westport is great, but it's almost like we're not supposed to touch those areas.
That's right.
And that is not fair across the board in the city, because we are knowing that the 3rd and 5th District holds the largest population of African Americans. That's great. But then when we look at the 3rd and 5th District, how you're zigzagging us. And right now, it goes up to 51st Street, but now you're talking about zigzagging 51st and then 53rd, and then going back to 58, and then coming up to 59. Okay, where else is any other community and district is that happening? It's not happening on none of these maps. Everybody else has a straight line that borders them, but we have to be zigzag. So I have a problem with that. Then, why, as we say, we always go north and south, but why can't 5th District or even 3rd District go all the way over to Troost? And even cross it, but that's that invisible line. But so we got to figure out how to make it better.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Don't hurt Melissa. we all know. Thank you all also for honoring that timepiece. It's really helpful. Next up, Lamar Vickers.
Hey, thank you for allowing us. As you know, when I came before you, I said we didn't know what we wanted. Well, Now, after being over with the 3rd and the 5th, we know what we want. That's the president of Blue Hills. And it's very clear, as you spoke earlier, that jagged line, that 51st to 55th, no, go straight 51st. That will also encompass the numbers that's needed. Then you go 3rd and 5th. Instead of going south, east and west.
Yes.
East hits little parts of Raytown, the other hits parts of Westport and Plaza. Now, what happened is you go west, 4963, Blue Hills pushes over in the 4963 area. 4963 area goes over into the other area. It only makes sense. Going south, the neighborhoods do not want that.
That's right.
They do not. So, saying to you that then Truce, being the red line forever, needs to be moved west.
That's correct. That's right.
Yes, and so just know that the 3rd and the 5th, as I stated to you before on several occasions, has to be empowered, has to be placed in a position where tax incentives, from what I'm understanding now, there's tax incentives that will also come into play if we were able to move these lines east and west. Those are the considerations that you must make when you get ready to make this decision. Allowing the 3rd and 5th to be weakened any further than it already is not an option. If you're doing right and the right thing is in your heart to do, then you will highly consider what we're saying as far as making these district lines be very optimal for the success of the underserved areas in this city that have been underserved for decades. So with that, we say east and west, no south, maybe a little north, and that'll get your numbers for the 3rd and the 5th.
Thank you so much, Mr. Vickers. Melissa, I'll ask you to turn up the volume on that. Oh, man. Just for me, to help me. All right, if we can have Mr. Darren Curls. Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'd like to commend you guys again for your service on this commission. I know it's hard work, very difficult, and you have a lot of different variations of ideas and concerns. I'm Darrell Curls, president of Kirkside Homes Association, former school board member, current committeeman in the 25th Ward. I'd like to just echo the concerns in regards to the Hickman Mills School District and the Hickman Mills community. We are a community. We would like to continue to stay as a community together. The representation that we've had over the last 10 to 15 years has been dismal at least. And we would hope that in the future that we would be able to have better representation by being incorporated into the FIT. And as also mentioned, it's also hard to run for office in a position where somebody else from a more affluent part of the city has more money or more clout than you do. Hickman Mills is not a real affluent part of the city, but we do have community that is concerned, committed to its community, and work hard to try to make sure that we have better representation. And we're going to continue to do that. If we can't go over to Blue River and include the whole of the district, we would like to try to include as much of Hickman Mills as possible, whether that's Grandview Road or whether that's somewhere in between Blue River and Grandview Road. But we've got to try to continue to have Hickman Mills as one community. Thank you for your time and your commitment, and look forward to whatever you come up with.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your service as well. Next up, Beth Volker. Get me right, make sure I pronounce your name correctly.
That's close, but I answered anything. It's really Burger.
Burger, okay.
Hi. I don't really have a prepared speech, but one thing I've heard today from a lot of you is one person, one vote. Well, and I am on the Ruskin Heights Homes Association board, and we have 1,875 properties. Right now, less than 400 of those properties are resident homeowners. The rest are owned by out-of-state, out-of-country landlords who are bleeding money from our neighborhoods and giving nothing back. Nothing. And the one person, one vote is not accurate, because you all know in a neighborhood that's high rental property, it's also transient property. And it has hurt our neighborhoods, and it has hurt our school district. Both need to be stabilized. And to do that, you have to hold the Hickman Mills neighborhood together. And the neighborhood and the school district are not the same boundaries. And that's what you need to understand. You need to hold the Hickman Mills neighborhood together. What you do with the school district, that's not really my concern. But I know it would be more stable as well if we could all work together. And that's what we need to do. I'm a community activist. I'm working to try to get the people, the tenants that live in my neighborhood, my neighbors involved. And I believe that's an important thing. And we will want to elect our own representative, but the socio impact of the neighborhood being all rental makes that almost impossible. We need to have fair representation out here in the South. And we need the city to know that things go on in the South besides crime. I am so tired of every time crime happens, then they claim us as South Kansas City. But if it's not crime, then they're not going to claim us. You know, and I'm really tired of it. And so I beg you to keep Hickman Mills neighborhood together.
Thank you, Ms. Barker. You got a louder one. I know. Made the sound stronger. Thank you. If you've got clarification, we have a clarifying question, Ms. Berger, for you.
Yeah. I'm on the city's neighborhood site. I just want to make sure that I am taking down the correct boundaries of the Hickman Mills neighborhood. It probably was said before, but it's the first time that I am hearing or discerning the difference between the school district boundaries, which we heard too, keep that in the fifth. But now I'm hearing like there are these different boundaries, and so I want to make sure I'm tracking the neighborhood boundaries.
I can't give you the district boundaries off the top of my head.
Ms.
You'll have to
Egan,
look
can
it up.
Is it registered as Hickman Mills neighborhood?
Mills is not in Kansas City.
Okay, okay.
But some of Grandview.
Can you speak into the mic, Ms. Eden?
Not all of Hickman Mills is in Kansas City, but then on the other hand, some of Grandview is in the Hickman Mills School District.
Right.
So there's just a cross.
Okay, so you guys are asking for the neighborhood boundaries that are currently traverse the 5th and the 6th to be together.
We want the entire Hickman Mills community together, yes, which would go to the state line.
Which consists of several neighborhoods.
Wow, they're really strong on that.
Yes. And what we will go back to our stenographers to get the clarity on what those boundaries are.
The east and west boundaries would probably be basically the same. And then somewhere around 87, 88.
Thank you, Ms. Edens. Next up, Laura Burkwacher.
Hello there. I'm Laura Burkwacher, president of the South Northland Neighborhood Association. Our boundaries are 39th Street to Cleaver, from Main to Gillum. And currently all of the options split our neighborhood into 2 districts, 4th and 6th. And in the history of our neighborhood, I don't think we've ever been split between 2 districts. We only have about 2,800 residents, and it would be our preference to stay in one of those districts and not be split between 2. It's just a challenge to get the vote out to begin with for these smaller elections, and it would be a lot easier if we could coordinate to be in one district. So I want to keep it short and sweet, but that's our simple request.
Can you repeat the boundaries again?
39th to Cleaver 2, and then Main Street to Gillum Road.
What's the neighborhood called?
Southmoreland.
Thank you.
What's your name again?
My name is Laura Burkhalter.
Spell the last name.
Burkhalter.
Thank you.
And I appreciate all of your work. I know this is a big effort.
And right now, you're in fourth. You're in the
We're in fourth now, so I know it's a challenge. If we could stay in one district, that would be ideal.
Good to see you, Laura. Good. All right. Next up, Mr. John Sharp.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I certainly appreciate your service and appreciate you coming out here to hear from us again. I'm John Sharp, former city councilman, and I'm head of the South Kansas City Alliance, but I am speaking as an individual myself. I would echo the comments of Darrell Curls earlier that we would like our community and our school district kept together as much as possible in the 5th district. As I testified at your earlier public hearing, we did want that, but we also want to make sure we're not diluting African-American voting strength and proportion percentage in the 5th district. And I don't think that does. Adding the parts of the Hickman Mills community to the 5th that aren't in it now actually should enhance the African-American percentage in the 5th. We realize that it might be very difficult to put the whole school district or the portion of the school district that's in Kansas City all in the 5th because that does go over to Blue River Road, and as you get closer to Blue River Road it's a little less diverse, but at least, as I think several speakers have said, if you could go over to Grandview Road as the dividing line between the 5th and 6th, that would put the bulk of our community in the 5th district where we could continue to work together and have a more effective voice at City Hall. Right now, on all three of these maps, the line goes down Hillcrest Road, and to us that just doesn't make any sense as a dividing line because it takes the Hillcrest Heights community and the Haven Apartments community, which would be the only areas east of 71 Highway, and puts them in the 6th district. And Hillcrest Heights is overwhelmingly African American. And so that certainly doesn't help the diversity of the 5th by putting it in the 6th. But if you could get over to Grandview Road as a divider, we think that would make a lot of sense, and we hope you'll continue to look at that possibility. And if I could just say one thing in closing, I am so glad that this commission is looking at making a recommendation to the City Council to have a new charter commission, because at-large elections have historically, as you know, been used as a method to disenfranchise ethnic minorities. And it has that effect here, and it's awfully tough for somebody without a lot of money to run effectively at large. You need a couple of $100,000, and because you only have 6 districts, it takes a whole lot of money to just run in district. So a lot of our most committed neighborhood activists can't really run a grassroots campaign for City Council now.
Right.
But if we had 12 districts, they'd have a chance. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next up, Aaron Smith. Once again, get me right. Make sure I'm pronouncing your name correctly.
Hey, good afternoon, Aaron Schmidt. I'm a resident in Council District Number 2. Also try to stay civically involved. I'm president of the Homes Association for Platteville North. Prior president for Platte County EDC and very involved in Northland Chamber. Spent quite a bit of time on the PIAC group. Here to speak really kind of in strong opposition of 8.4. It does numerous bad things for the Northland. One, it separates school districts to council districts, which is an extremely big problem that we have. 2, it also separates counties into different districts as well. This is a big problem, but I think the thing that it does most damage is it's just very divisive. If you look at the socioeconomic groups in the Northland, there's a group south generally and a group north. And what you're saying here with this 8.4 is that if you are in a certain socioeconomic group and you make a certain salary, you're in this district. if you look different and you make more money, you're in another district. And I don't think that's a diverse way to represent the county. I've raised my family here. I appreciate the diversity in my area. Raised my kids to appreciate that. I think it's a very good thing. And to divide the Northland like this is a very big problem. It almost seems like it's on purpose. I think that we, as a Northland, work together very well, but you put us into two different groups, it's very divisive, causes fights and other major problems and issues with that. So, strong opposition of 8.4.
Thank you.
I didn't get his name.
Can you clarify the question? Aaron Smith.
Aaron Smith.
Yes, sir. All right, next up, Dion Terra.
I guess that's because I have terrible handwriting. Thank you. Good afternoon.
Give me right.
Devin Turan.
Devin?
Yeah, I'm sorry, guys. It's just, this is bad. So, hey, good afternoon. Thank you so much for the considerations at play. I want to take a second to thank everyone here for the thoughtful consideration of what does diversity, what does integration look like in our city. I'm the Director of Policy and Partnership for Revolución Educativa. We're the 501c3 affiliate of the Latinx Educators Collaborative. I cannot claim to speak for all Hispanic people in Kansas City.
Right.
But I do know that as a group, there is no way among these maps to cut it so that we have a majority in any of these districts. And so my sincere hope, yeah, I'm tall, you're all good. My sincere hope is that whoever is elected, whoever are on the ground grassroots leaders throughout our entire city recognize our needs, have us at the table, and do not assume what we believe, what we need, and recognize the diversity within our community. We are also the group, no matter how you cut it, we're also the most spread through Kansas City. So while the Northeast and the East Side have more Latinos than any other areas, we're pretty well spread out, and we blend in. And we need to make sure that all groups recognize, and if we're not on that side of the table with the microphones, please make sure that we are at the table, invited to it, and that we are heard. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Devin Turan. People need people, correct me please. And I'll need assistance on this as well. Ron. Oh, Mr. Artest. Welcome. Right, this, Dr. Hill is helping me with what she thought it read. Ron, what's your last name? Don't worry about it. Ron.
Hey, thank you. I appreciate everybody up here. I just want to, I'm hearing a lot of social freedom out here, but social freedom only kind of like lead us to spend our money with others that we may not benefit from it. And the plaza historically really has not been friendly to African Americans. And so with that, I just like to see this thing go east or west.
What thing?
Yeah, the district, the redistricting. Yeah, because we need some of the plaza money. You know, we need white folks' money. You know, in our neighborhood. I'm gonna be honest with you. I've been living in my neighborhood about 50 years. Linda's the neighborhood president, and the city does very little in terms of helping us in our neighborhood. They give the 6th district, where's John Sharp? He gets probably about $80,000 a year just to run a can, you know, with the police, with the can center. We get a little bitty piece of money. And we do good by that because we get private funding. And I thank you, Coach. I really thank you, and I'm depending on you. I'm depending on you to really speak for us in the 5th district. I know her. I'm really depending on you. And let me say something about, I've heard everything else besides economic development. How is this going to impact us in the 5th district? The 3rd district, because all I see, and this is based on past poor representation that we had in the 3rd, poor, not current, because I appreciate my councilwoman here, but the poor representation that we've historically had in the 3rd and 5th district. Look at the 63rd Street project. We need some of that plaza money, the Westport money. We need a representative to shift some of those tax breaks over to the 3rd and 5th district.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. And that's all I'm saying, you know, because I think Coquille there, I don't know which map kind of fits it a little bit, but we're in Blue Hill. See, I've been living on 56 and Highland, where Emmanuel Cleaver has a church, and probably spent about $10 million on that church, but never went a block this way, block that way. You follow what I'm saying? So we've had historical poor representation. And so I'm trusting you, some of y'all, and people, oh, this is my last one. Why is it that the Hispanics is not lumped in with African Americans? Why are we not considered people of color?
I'm sure that'll give you
people of color, because you see, they represent a certain amount of percentage, we represent. How come you just add us together? Because we're sufferers of the same condition.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up, Karen Williams.
White folks month.
Hello. My name is Karen Williams. I am a member of KCOG, which is Keeping Communities on God. We are a nonprofit. Our job is to make sure that the community is aware of the things that y'all do, because they don't have a clue. When they turn the TV on, they see all kinds of stuff, crazy mess, they turn it off. They don't have any idea as to what our council, our government is doing for them. My concern is, I've been gone for 10 years. I came back to Kansas City on the 29th of June and was totally disgusted. I saw so much change, but I didn't see any betterment, for our people in our neighborhoods, okay? I understand that, we have we're called the people of color, but there's other colors, the Caucasian persuasion is moving into our neighborhoods. Well, they're trying to move us out. They're building homes around in our neighborhoods that we can't afford. My problem with the redistricting, the way that it's going right now, is that we need somebody in our area, like our brother was saying, that's going to provide for us.
Speak for us.
Okay, we need somebody that's going to stand up and say, these neighborhoods aren't there, it's not equal because of the economic problem. Okay, the streets are a mess. All the dilapidated housing and the housings that are all boarded up, all the houses. What y'all gonna do about that? If we're talking about redistricting, let's do it so that all the homes in all the areas from, well, I don't care what street you want to go, from Prospect to Wabash to Euclid, it doesn't make any difference. The streets are a mess, the housing is a mess, and if we're going to have these types of living conditions,
go ahead, sir.
Then we need somebody in our district that's going to speak up for us so that we can have better roads, so that we can have the snowplows come down our streets. Okay, the more money that you have up north, the better streets you have. We don't have grocery stores. We don't have Quick Trip. Come on. We need something other than, I'm going to name it, Wells Fargo's business in our neighborhoods. And I'm talking about the check cashing places owned by Wells Fargo. Let's get them out of here and let's get banks in so that we can prosper. Okay?
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Williams.
Thank you. Good job.
All right. And this is our last comment card that we have, so if you happen to have one, I want to make sure you wave it so we can get you in. The last up is Michael Shaw.
Good afternoon, this afternoon, Michael Shaw, 5th District resident, have been for over 20 plus years, humble city servant. There's always a saying, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And in some of these things here, we're on the menu. As much as we try to say we want to protect the African American vote, you're actually taking some of the most historically largest voting African American communities and you're dividing them. And I've heard a lot of commentary about protecting, whether it's a district, a neighborhood, a community, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. At the end of the day, one of the things that you see is that you do see that the African American population is dwindling in the percentages in the 3rd and the 5th district. So you're not doing the best to protect those in the ways that these things are set out. Whether we talk about having 12 voting districts, all this other stuff is not necessarily your charge. Whether or not the plaza stays together or not is not necessarily your charge. What your charge is to kind of figure out how that one of the big things is protecting the African American vote, because that's actually in the charter, in the charge of what you're supposed to be doing. And what we're seeing is that we're seeing that those votes are being diminished in our largest African American voting communities. They're being split. What it takes us from is being at the table and is putting us on the menu. So with that being said, I really want you to really take a look at how the 3rd and the 5th is split and where those splitting lines are really are. And then as it relates to how they grow, you know, I don't have any say north of the river or any of those type of areas like that, but more concerned about the district that I've been in and raised my children in and how we get represented in that district. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shopwood. All right, thank you each for your comments. We will now move into, as you can see, that many of the commissioners were taking notes, and we'll move forward. You may hear comments related to some particular pieces that you stated, and of course any other closing comment, if you will, from the commissioners. After this, we then will ask that you get one, and I'll explain this again, but a sticker so that you too, as many of the commissioners have done in identifying their favorable map, that you are able to do that as well. Once again, recognizing that the tally is not the direct determinant of what, but instead a contributing feedback tool that we will use as commissioners are tasked with voting for one map. So with that, we'll start this side. This time we'll start from this side down. Commissioners, with your closing thoughts and comments. So Commissioner Llewellyn.
Thank you. I did hear you guys, or hear everyone today regarding Hickman Mills community. I definitely think I want to try my best. I think the whole commission does, to include that district in the 5th district, if all possible. You know, I am not real happy to have the plaza in the 6th district or not in the 6th district. Doesn't matter. It just happens to be the border where the statistics came down on. And so that's why we kept mentioning that to begin with. But what I've heard from my fellow commissioners throughout this whole process was that if the 3rd and the 5th would move west into the 6th or the 4th district, it would dilute the African American percentages, which I think is an important thing. And that's the thing that when I first came onto this commission, I was all about an east-west thing. And I think that once we got into it, and I heard my fellow commissioners and the rest of the thing, the importance of the African American percentages.
Spoken about today, but I don't necessarily have a final closing comment besides just, you know, I raised the plaza, and Westport has a concern of mine because to me those communities or the business districts are completely different from where I grew up in South Kansas City, and that's a concern for how far the district has to stretch. And echoing what Chris just said, you know, we are not looking at going east or west of truce as the boundary line, because if we maintain that truce line, that is what maintains the African American majority above 55%, where we're trying to get it. So as Chris was saying, moving west of that is diluting that percentage and taking it down, so that's why we've stayed there. And same thing, going east of truce then takes a block of folks that are, you know, whether it's truce, Paseo, or whatever, that takes a block of those folks out of the 3rd and 5th, which is what I've tried to avoid. Everybody here has tried to avoid that. I hear you on the Hickman Mills community. We got to look at the lines for Grandview or Blue River. We'll continue to do that and consider that in conjunction with the Plaza in Westport. And again, I only say Plaza in Westport because that's where the line has to shift. If there's a push on the bottom, there's a push somewhere else. And then I have to deal with the other commissioners getting mad at me for trying to push that line again. Dr. Hill?
Thank you all for providing such rich feedback. A couple of things that I want to make some remarks on. One is the economic development. As the vice chair on the city planning commission, I can tell you that the majority, and I've been over there for a little over a year, the majority of economic development projects that come through for the 3rd and the 5th are gas stations and convenience stores. And I, for one, have raised my voice and are sick and tired. But we don't always have the same amount of community presence in those spaces to help impress on those of us that serves on those commissions. It's not just CPC. You have the Port Authority, EDC, KC, TIF, BCA. You have all of these different economic development boards. And so I think for me, it was the takeaway that I am is how do I get our neighborhood groups to start to think about creating a collaborative in which you are having presence in these spaces where you're talking about economic development and housing opportunities. That was the first thing. The second thing is I think we all thought about like our sick and tired of truce being the dividing line, de facto, de jure, whatever we want to call it. We're sick and tired of it, right? But when we think about housing opportunities, when we think about who lives currently in these communities, when we traverse across truths, it could meet the dilution of the African American voice. So what I want to raise for everyone here, and I know you guys know this, is you don't just vote for your in-district rep. You got 6 at-large people that you're voting for. And those at-large people, even though they have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on their name, they work for you. And so if you want some Plaza money, you can go to that representative in the 4th district that's at large and say, how is it that your advocacy stops when we cross truths? So I just, you know, and that's not to beat up on council people. I certainly have been in that position, but I just want to impress upon you that the in-district person always is visible and works, but you also have these folks that are elected by you that are serving in that. It's unconscionable that someone at large would not come to your community meeting and not come to hear your voice and not think about advocating for you. The next and final thing that I would say is I want to go back and try to see what it looks like. I think we tried Blue River Road. It didn't work for the numbers, and that not just numbers in population, but to maintain a strong African American voting bloc in the 5th. But I do think we can look at Grandview Road, and I do think we can look at, we didn't want to push, we didn't think at the time that the 6th district wanted it to go so far north that it's not a Southtown district. And so having heard from you and said, hey, listen, we don't care if the Plaza or whoever else, we are one Kansas City, but what we most importantly want is representation, and we want to be together. And so we've got to think about how to balance that in a way that it respects the disruption that happens to a community when you start shifting their boundaries, but also protects what you hold valuable to your community. So I pledge my support to work with all the commissioners, but specifically looking at the 6th district to say, how do we move these boundaries in a way, if we can, to get tight and get across this, what is this? Hickman, is that where it starts now? Hillcrest. To see if we can get up. I'm not as young as I used to be. I used to be able to see that. I was struggling. But again, thank you for your feedback. Please leave your dots. All of this is helpful to all of us. But I want you to know, as much as I'm proud and honored to be in 5th district, I also too am coming and looking at this as a total city. And that is what's important. I don't want us to pit our interests against each other, that we lose the fact that we are one Kansas City. And that means that we have to talk about what does representation look like for all of us differently. And so again, my recommendation is always going to be that 6 don't fix. 6 don't fix. 6 don't fix what we got going on. I don't know. That's not a good tagline, but I hear you. Yeah, y'all get it. So thank you again.
Thank you, Dr. Gill. Commissioner Rucker?
Thank you guys so much for coming out. As I mentioned in my opening remarks, that not being from down in this part of the city, it's very important for me to hear from you about what you want down here, what you want your district and your community to look like. And I heard you at the very first community meeting, and I also received a phone call from John Sharp early on. And so I just want to let you know that I remain committed to working to get that boundary as close as we can to what you want and make those numbers work. And I would just say that with community feedback being so important to me, the same goes for the Northland. And I do also live in the Northland, but the community feedback portion of that, we received 3 comments about wanting the Northland to be horizontal from the public. And 2 of those comments came from the same household. And then we received 17 comments of folks wanting the Northland to be split vertically. And then the only public comment you heard here today from the Northland was pleading for it to be split vertically. And so as you take your dot to the map that you prefer, I would just like for you to keep that in mind, that public comment is important. Yours is, and that's why I'm committed to working toward what you want. And I would just urge you to be committed to what the Northlanders that have spoken up have said that they wanted, and that's to keep the Northland split vertically and not horizontally. Thank you guys for your time and appreciate it.
Thank you.
I have quite a few comments based upon the input that we had today. And I'm going to be just kind of blunt and deep, and I'm not going to kind of candy coat this stuff at all. I'm just going to deal with it. And I commend my commissioners for, being a little nicer than I am, I think, on this stuff, and want to give you all some hope. But I just don't see it. And if you are, if you're okay with diluting the black vote in the 5th district, and consequently and subsequently also in the 3rd district, we can put all Hickman Mills in one school district. In one councilman district. But I'm not for that, and heretofore my colleagues have not been for that, and I don't think that they've changed their minds on that. We did look at, to quickly say, losing Blue River. You just simply can't do that. The numbers just don't work. I don't think you can do Grandview Road. And then John Sharp, somebody said that they think they would put, I guess they're doing anecdotally. Well, I'm not doing it anecdotally. I'm doing it based on some other maps that we have. We have a couple of iteration maps that you all haven't seen that we looked at, we rejected, largely for that reason. But when you move the line just west over as far as Cleveland and Jackson, you take it down from like 58%, 57% to 53%, the black percentage. Just by going that far. You go further, you take it down even farther. So I'm not going to kind of candy coat this and give you all some hope. I won't be supporting any map that's going to dilute, that's going to take this over to, that's going to dilute the black vote by taking this over in Hickman Mills, just to keep Hickman Mills in one councilman district. And then some guy got up and talked about the one of the reasons that the Hickman Mills School District is underperforming center in Grandview, it may be because it is split in 2 councilman districts. I'm certainly not persuaded by that. And I haven't seen any empirical data, and nobody's offered any empirical data to support that notion. I think there are other reasons why the Hickman Mills School District is poor performing. Transience is a major issue. I think weak curriculum, lack of a rigorous curriculum, poor quality instruction, the socioeconomic conditions in this district, the tax base has been eroded by the Cerner project that a lot of people in this room supported. In retrospect, I hope they recognize they made a mistake in doing that. And the lack of the solid tax base, that's why our school district is underperforming. Not because it's split in between 2 council-managed districts. It's ridiculous. Another thing, I know some people said they may be wanting to look at taking that district further north. I won't be supporting taking the 6th district all the way down to 31st Street. It doesn't make any sense. It's not in the best interest of the city overall. And merely to accommodate a desire for some people to have all that district in one council district. I mean, have all that school district in one council district. If we did that, we'd be drawing Eric Bunch out of his district. I don't think that's appropriate. We'd be splitting up further neighborhoods, and I don't think that's appropriate just for that, to address that interest. With respect to the, I don't want to debate that here today. I want to say that for a later debate. But with respect to the horizontal configuration of the Northland, I want to hear more information, and Martin and I are certainly going to talk in more detail offline about that, but I find it hard to believe that concentrating similar socioeconomic interests with respect to housing values and household income would be a problem for Northland to continue to work together. It's my understanding that all the Northland people have a common interest and that they're really trying to work to foster economic growth in the Northland. And I don't see how we run the district to keep similar similar housing values and similar household income together in one district to the detriment, or it's a barrier to those people working together with other people in Northland. So I want to have my ears open to do that. I'm looking forward to having more discussion about that. And I haven't heard, and give us some information or give us some lines that protects the 5th district voting majority African American and the 3rd district majority interest African American, and puts all the Hickman Mills in the 5th district. Give us some lines to show it. We've asked the staff to try to do it. They couldn't do it. They haven't been able to do it yet. But if you all have some software and some data that can accomplish that, show us how to do it, because we've been trying. And I'm gonna say, even, I thought we did. Did we go to Grandview Road and did it, and it just didn't work? No, but maybe we do it again. Maybe do it again. Maybe something changed something. But come back and give it to us, because I haven't seen it. So my goal is going to be to take one of these maps, 8.4, if we end up on the horizontal configuration, or 7.1 if we decide not to go that direction, and see how we can get 3 from 51% up to 55%, 51.4. I don't think it's sufficient for 3. I think if you already want to have the 3rd district be majority black district and safe for the next 10 years, we need to get to 55. And I guess I'd like to get 5 up over 55. I think 5 right now to 57, so that may be okay. But it's going to be tough even to get 5 up, because we also have to try to get more Latinos out of 3 into 4 if we can. So those are the challenges that we have. And quite frankly, again, I know a lot of people out here. I work with Darrell Curls, I work with Teresa Eatons, I work with Terrence Nash. I don't work with John Trump too well, used to. And I'm sensitive to your interests, and would like to have a long history. But I want to be frank with you. I don't see how we can accommodate you on this issue, and I'm not willing to sacrifice strong, solid majorities in the 3rd and 5th districts to accommodate your interests. If you don't want to work for me again, I understand that, but that's my position.
Thank you, Commissioner Adams. Commissioner Notice, and I also want to note our time. We're at 2 p.m.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. I want to just clarify a couple of issues and then focus in on a couple of things. The commission, every commissioner, as far as I can tell's first commitment was to keep the 3rd and 5th district with the majority of African American voters, to protect the Voting Rights Act, and legally we need to do that anyway, which is why it's confusing about truce being the dividing line. In order to do that, we and everybody also wanted to try and get most of the Hispanic voters into one district if it's possible, so we might go back to a time when we have a Hispanic representative on the council, which has been a long time. And in order to do that, 3 had to come back down a little bit to accommodate that. And then just by geography, it's 6 and 4 that are changing the most because of those priorities. 6 is, whatever we do is going to be a big, long, linear district. And it's going to include the Southwest Corridor, so it's going to have part of the wealthiest part of the city in it. We use the term plaza just because it helps people with location, but that's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about the basic part of the plaza. We're talking about the neighborhoods through there. And that's already off the table. That's going into 6. So 6 is going to have a lot of issues and challenges between completely different kinds of constituents. And they're going to need to work together like every district has to. So the 4th district has to be at least at 43rd Street to make these numbers work. So the plaza's already in 6. And the Northeast is where we're trying to keep most of the Hispanic people together. And the reason 4 goes north of the river is that the districts north of the river grew and had to get rid of some people to make the $85,000, 85, which it was.
Right.
85,000 people issue. So those challenges don't all work together. If you push west in 5, then you got to go up farther in 6. And like I think it was Reed said, every time you take a block in the more dense parts of the city, Midtown especially, and downtown, then you're taking, it just takes a couple blocks to screw the numbers up because there's just so many more people living per acre in that dense part of the city. And that leaves everybody else with these big giant districts that are tough to cover because they're mostly single family residences and they're spread out a little bit more. So we are listening. We have tried really hard on the Hickman Mills thing. We heard you last time, and I think I agree we'll try and look at that again. There's going to be some tweaking around the edges of most of this, but I think these are going to be close to what we're going to end up with, and not everybody's going to be, in fact, I don't think anybody's going to be completely happy. And if they are, then that's some kind of miracle, but otherwise we probably wouldn't be doing our job. What we also want to help people understand is that they're, as why these reasons are. We're not picking on anybody, we're not trying to mess up anybody's economic development pattern. This is what we have to work with. And it isn't easy, which is why most of us think these districts are too big to make sense. Most of the things you brought up have to do with that. And I'll leave it at that. I'm willing to listen to people more about their details and what they want to talk about, but I just want to say that 4 and 6 are going to be very different this time around. And we haven't been able to find a way around that yet. So if you do have other ideas, like Commissioner Adams said, bring them up here, because we've looked at about every way you can do this possible. So thanks for coming out today. Your input is really important, and we'll do the best we can.
Thank you. Kella?
Yeah, I just want to start off by echoing, I appreciate everybody's commitment. It is Saturday, it's a beautiful day out. I appreciate your patience. I know we're over time, but I do want to make sure that you all have time to share with us which map you prefer. A couple of things, just based on the comments that were provided today. There is a way, I think, that we can work these boundaries to meet, many of the needs that were spoken today. I can't promise that all of them will be met. I think Commissioner Notice explained that well. It's going to be a compromise. My commitment, as I mentioned early on, is to take the input that we have here, provide some empirical data to try to make it work as best we can to meet those needs. I think we have a map that shows the boundary between 5th and 6th moving west a little bit, and I think there's some percentages that we can work with. I'd like to go back and revisit that, so that would be a commitment I would make, that I hope the commissioners would be willing to have that discussion again. I opened up with my comments regarding there are many different opportunities for us to take existing maps that you have in front of us today, that we have sitting on our desk here, to be able to work from. And I think that's a perfect example of that. I would, however, also say, I heard you loud and clear regarding the school district not just being school district, but rather community. I heard that in the first public meeting. I hear it loud and clear. I think that it speaks to what I was just talking about as far as moving boundaries. I'm certainly empathetic. What is being presented in the Northland is going to split 4 districts horizontally, school districts. So I think that I hear that loud and clear. So there's something that we have in common there, and that's one thing that I'd like to point out as you consider that. That's something that is being proposed, that you all are experiencing what was shared today as you see an issue that's created because of that. I hope that we're not trying to do that as we take a one city approach here. The other thing I would say is there are opportunities for the city to grow as a community. And I think anytime that we put ourselves in a position where it creates division, we're in a losing position. And my commitment is to do that not only in one district, but throughout the city. And that's the approach that I take every time we get into this. As you consider the maps, to Commissioner Adams' point, where he doesn't necessarily see the issue, and I hate to talk about this, but it was brought up, because we're not in that district, but when we talk about the horizontal Northland, what it does is it creates an underrepresentation in that proposed northern district, northern first district, because immediately you will be underrepresented with the amount of current lots that are on the ground now that homes will be built in. Within a year or two, you will already be 25,000 or 2,500 people over what we start with in day one with this new councilmanic district. That creates an underrepresentation. I wouldn't want that to happen in any district. I wouldn't want it to happen in 6th. I wouldn't want it to happen 5th, 4th, 3rd, you name it. I think it's very important for us to take all those things into consideration. I very much appreciate the community input today. I think this is invaluable. I think it's helpful to understand feelings around community assets. I think it's invaluable to hear things around business centers and what the community feels and experiences every day. So it helps me very much so. Appreciate it. I'll let you all jump to the maps as soon as we hear from Commissioner Zamora.
And I'll be releasing folks to the maps.
You are? Okay.
Thank you. Commissioner Zamora.
Well, first, I'd like to thank Councilwoman Shaw and any other council person that's in the room for giving us that extra leaf pickup day, because I could be out raking leaves today, and thank God I'm here, because I really appreciate hearing back from everyone. I've heard my fellow commissioners, and I would like to say, I want to push us to the limit. We should not be concerned about 10% set aside. We should not be concerned about the growth, because right now, if we want to make that happen, we have to listen to you all. We have to adjust our maps and push that to the limit to help achieve what you're asking for. We have federal guidelines, constitutional guidelines that keep us from moving there. It doesn't declare Latinos as a priority, but we're a growing majority in a certain sector of our city. And other gentlemen said we're all over. Our representation is just as critical as anyone else in this room. But I heard so many of you say that your local representation is the big key. You don't have access, and they're not listening. At large is not listening. I hope that was the message I heard. I wrote it down. It was at large that you looked at it, and you also wanted to look at going east and west. I'm as open as the rest of my colleagues, but we have to stick within a certain boundary to achieve what we need to do before December 1st. Our 4th district will take the burden of the brunt of any changes. Accommodating growth is painful. I will task and challenge my fellow commissioners to, let's not look at the set aside as the final factor. Growth is coming to Kansas City. Growth is coming to all our districts, and it's impacting all of us. If our budgets allow us and they're distributed equally in district, then we shouldn't be missing public services. We have a chance to make that change, and hopefully when you select maps there, that puts us on the right track.
Thank you. So my closing thoughts are as such. 20 plus maps. 20 plus maps. Different iterations, moving through different lines, protecting and considering different communities, moving through considering what representation looks like. 20 plus different maps. Cal's looking at me like I think you're missing something. I want that to be communicated, because that is the fact of what the process has entailed thus far. That in listening to your voice and considering what we've heard, we've come up with those various scenarios, most of which do not support and honor what the law is, and you all have the laws and the guiding principles of this process. And that makes it difficult. Districts 1, 2, and 4 are high, meaning they have more people than what is mandated by law. Districts 3, 5, and 6 are low. That means that the lines have to transition and change so that we can be consistent and compliant to what the law says. I lead with that because we have to be mindful of it as we synthesize the information. And I want to follow Commissioner Adams' duty of saying this is just the facts and the reality. This is the truth of what's guiding this. And so, as we think about that, I also want to remind us that there are other counties and school districts that are split amongst councilmatic districts. That is also part of the characteristics and the reality of what this redistricting will look like. And so I want to honor that. That's not going to not happen just for one particular district because they don't want it to happen. It's part of what is necessary to happen in order for us to be thoughtful about this, all the guiding mandates. I also want to challenge the notion that creating and valuing voices based upon social economic status somehow is divisive. If only we believe that people having more of a voice is disruptive to what is already going on. And if that is our guiding concern, then that is problematic in itself. That representation matters, and people having more voice should not be what we see as what is divisive. So thank you all for continuing to share your time with us and allow us to give further insight about the narratives and the considerations that we are having in light of what you have shared with us. This process continues as we will have one more community meeting on, somebody pray for me, what is it? Monday, November the 8th at the Greg Price Center from 6 to 8. And so we continue to look forward to listening to your voices. We want to ensure that community members are able to get, and let me know, Melissa, are you going to be passing these out, or people just come up and get one sticker? We're on the honor system here.
Yeah, I think if everybody
Well, if we can spread them out a little bit, maybe begin to pass them out so people can begin to do that. And we're asking you to take one and place upon your most favorable map. Place one and put it upon your favorable map. This is not predictive of which... And excuse me, if we can hold, I'm just waiting for it to be quiet, as some people may have some trouble hearing if there's additional sounds. So what we're asking you to do is to place it upon your most favorable map. I want to remind, this is not going to be predictive of which map is selected. However, we will use it as another indicator to understand, excuse me, Commissioner. So once again, thank you, and we hope to see you all, and we'll probably allow this for maybe another 10 or so minutes as we know that we want to release our city staff. Thank you all for joining.